Hello, future of everything. Actually, I'm saying hello to a video camera. I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm sure it sounds like you're having a great day, and it's very cool to be able to do this interview from here in sunny Vancouver. I was asked to come today, or to be here today with you, to talk a bit about Vancouver's Open 3 initiative. And why Open 3, like where does this come from? So it's hard not to tell a story without at least trying to start at the beginning. So I will try and start at the beginning for you, because I think part of what I'm hoping I can do today is inspire some of you to go back to your local councils or your national governments and talk to them about the importance of open data. So, you know, it's a pretty broad generalization, but I guess one could say that there's two basic reasons that people run for public office, and if there are locally elected officials in the audience, they can tell you whether this is true or not. The first reason is some people, and it's a very small segment, but some people have unmet emotional needs, and being on camera a lot can meet those needs. I think, you know, George Bush, some of those guys, we can you wonder why and how they got elected. That might help explain it. But I think the vast majority of people that run for office, they do it because they see unmet needs in their community, and they want to make some change on public policy. And that's true, you know, left, right, wherever you are in the public or on the spectrum of ideology. That's probably what motivated you to run for office. So here in Vancouver, we were a new government about a year and a half ago. I guess we're still technically relatively new. And we came in on a platform of some very big changes. We saw some large unmet needs in our community, which of course we thought requires a fairly large-scale policy response. Some of those things, we have one of the highest populations of homeless people in the developed world here in Vancouver. We were elected on a platform to end street homelessness in the city. We had a bold idea that we could be the greenest city in the entire world, not just be the greenest city, but actually accomplish all of that by the year 2020. And we also, Vancouver's never had an economic development strategy, and we wanted to modernize the economy in a way that everyone who lives in the city can see a future for themselves in that economy. So these are all big changes, and big change is not going to be built on a small foundation of tools that were fairly inadequate in the last century and are definitely inadequate in this one. So we looked at how we might change that foundation. How do you change this foundation to create change? Went back to fundamentals, the fundamentals of democracy, and two basic caveats that led, I guess, two basic caveats that lead to the place where we elect people at all to make decisions and consent to be governed. First caveat, we're all created equal. Second caveat, we all have the capacity to reason, and that last one is very, very important to remember. So if you sort of take it from there, when you get equal, reasoned people together in a room to make decisions, the quality of the decisions that they're going to make is only as good as the information that they have available to them. So the first and foremost job of any democracy, any elected group of people, any group of people representing anyone, whether that be a government or a nonprofit society or a credit union or whatever you have, their job is to absolutely protect the quality and the accuracy of information. Most importantly, protect the availability and the access to that information. Because if you're not doing that, then it's impossible to have the kind of reasoned, equal debate that our forefathers and mothers envisioned. So enter the Open 3 project. Vancouver, not unlike other governments on the planet, we had a culture within our civil service. Well, I guess it's probably good to give you a bit of why we think some of these cultures exist. The first culture was this idea that we have all this data. Probably the number one activity of any government is collecting data, analyzing that data, and preparing policy responses to that data. So we had an idea, like many governments in the developed world, that we would charge people to access data. This was a way that we could help pay for government. It's an idea that flows out of the 1980s, Reagan-Thatcher era, where people were looking at how to create cost recovery, I guess, in government. Unfortunate that those governments came to power right at the time data became more widely available, but nonetheless a legacy of that time. Second culture, Privacy Acts. Great things that our privacy is protected, but it does create a culture where people routinely don't release information unless someone allows them to do it. So we crafted the Open 3 motion to help break down that culture. First open data. And this says that data should not just be available, but accessible, which led to the second open standards. That means that it needs to be accessible in a standard that people will find it relevant and that they can relate to that, whether that be online or in person. Third thing, which is very important, is open source, and probably difficult to reconcile with open standard because some of the most open standards in the world are proprietary standards, but it is one of the challenges that we're dealing with. The last thing that I wanted to say about Open3, and the thing that I'm hoping you take away from the time that I've been able to spend here with you today, open data and open government advocates spend time talking to each other, which is really important. More important is that you move out into the community and you talk to people who aren't involved in this discussion, and most especially talk to your locally elected officials and ask them to bring in an Open3 policy as well. Thanks. Good? Excellent. Good. Yay.